Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in to another video. Today's video is the start of me making my, well actually it is just me making my December daily journal. You'll see there I have some prompts that I will be using. I'll show those later on in a different video, but for now I'm just going to focus on the actual making of the journal that I want to use throughout December and to complete the December daily series. I'm just going to be using some card for my cover. I wanted to keep it quite flexible. I didn't want anything too chunky or too heavy because I know it's going to get filled hopefully to the brim, so I didn't want to have too much already in place before adding all of my journal pages. So just went with a sheet of card and I cut it down widthways to 5.5, which obviously I could get 2 out of an A4 sheet of card, and I've also got a 2-inch spine as well. I am going to cover the journal with that red fabric that you see at the beginning. It's got like a gold speck running through it, so it's quite Christmassy, and the papers that I'm going to be using are papers that were released today on our Christmas 2024 launch, and I'm using the bunny the bunny journal download, and the colours within that are quite traditional. They're quite red, green and golds, so I felt like the red and the gold would go really well, and then I'll just add some green in different places, hopefully when I decorate the cover. I should obviously explain that here I have cut 2 sheets of everything, so I've got 2 front covers, 2 spines and 2 back covers, and I am gluing the 2 pieces of card together just to make sure that it is going to be sturdy enough and it's not going to flip and flap all over the place. But I find that 2 pieces of card glued together gives me a really sturdy cover, but nothing too stiff and nothing too heavy. So I'm happy with the way that that has turned out. It looks like I'm just giving you a flip through here of the digital download that's available, but I wasn't. I was actually trying to choose an image that was going to be used on the front of my journal cover. So I was just flicking through, and I also asked someone for advice as well. I asked my daughter which one she preferred, and we both actually preferred this little cute bunny on the front here. So I'm just going through and I am just going to, well, actually I ripped this in, and my thought process was that I would use it as it is and not do anything to it, so it would just have a nice straight but ripped edge. But you'll see later on in the video I did actually change it, and I actually ripped around the image rather than having it with straight edges. I just wanted to add a little bit extra onto the cover, so I did change that up a little bit. I was just showing you here that it's time for me to change my Dauber handle. I've gone for the Christmas gift box stack handle with the Christmas tree tray, but I also have the Nutcracker and the Santa tray available. It was a toss-up, but my daughter won for the Nutcracker, so I had to give that one to her. I don't mind as long as they're both getting used. It doesn't bother me who's got what. I do like this little present stack one though. I think it's quite subtle, but still very Christmassy. So I had to say goodbye to my acorn and my squirrel, but they will come out again soon, I am sure. I do also have others that I'll just put, if I have ink where I'm going to use blue ink or pink ink, I'll just keep them on a separate handle altogether rather than changing out the pads every time. But I thought for the YouTube I will change out my handle and have a nice shiny new one. So you just see me ink around the image that I'm going to put on the front cover. It turned out to be a bit of a waste of time because I ended up ripping it all off, but that doesn't matter. We'll pretend that that never happened. I do tend to do that quite a lot. I'll make a plan and think, yes, that's what I'm going to do, that's how it's going to look, and I'm going to stick to it. But 9 times out of 10, I don't, and I do end up changing things. But I just go with it, I just go with the flow. I don't put too much pressure on myself to keep things structured or to the plan, because life doesn't go to plan, so why should you craft in? I've now just brought in my red and gold Christmas fabric, and I'm just preparing to glue the pieces of card to the fabric in order to make my book cover. I'm just grabbing my T-bar spacers here just to make the job a little bit more easy for me. I switched up my glue for this part just because I prefer this bookbinding glue for binding fabric, for gluing fabric. I find it works better than just like a normal PVA, so I've gone for the binding glue, which I actually got at a craft fair from Pinflair. That's what it's made for, isn't it? Pinflair. It's made to be glued onto fabric, so it's perfect for that job. And I'm just using my spacers to create my cover as usual. You've all seen me do this before on multiple occasions. Just flipping that over just to make sure my glue is properly spread out, because I hate getting glue lines on my fabric. But don't worry about that spine bit in the middle there, that will disappear soon because I am going to put another piece of fabric over it. So just grabbed my L spacer bar, and again just creating that border just so I can cut around and later use my corner tool so that I can get the perfect corners ready to fold in and finish the cover off. I filmed for the whole day today, and there's a huge chunk of footage that for some reason just didn't record. I pressed record, and I know I did because I remember seeing the little red thing in the corner, and then I just cracked on and I used my signature punch tool and I punched my signatures. Not only did I punch my signatures, but I made all of my signatures too. I took you through that whole process of choosing the papers, putting them in a particular order, and it didn't record, and I don't know why, because I used a spare phone that I have, and it was still alight as if it was still recording, but when I went to press end recording there was nothing to end, and I just looked down at what I was doing and I was like, no, there was a solid hour and a half amount of work that I just not recorded. I also didn't record the part where I placed all of my bows onto the book. For some reason that didn't want to record either. So very frustrating, but I'm hoping that you don't need to see that. Obviously there will be future videos where I'll use my signature punch and make signatures, so it's not going to be completely missed forever. It will come back into another video. So this one here, because as I said in the beginning, the download has got very traditional colours within it, the red, green and golds. So I obviously had the red for the cover, and the gold was covered in that as well. So I just picked out this nice holly leaf Christmas fabric to go along the spine. I'm just going through with my scissors here, just picking out random pieces just to make it a bit frayed and a bit ragged, and then I'm not going to glue right close to the edge either, so as this gets used I'm hoping that it will fray a little bit more, and that will become even more frayed, because at the moment I don't think you can actually see it on the video how frayed it is, but I'm hoping it'll get more frayed as it gets used and chucked about. So again, I'm just using my fabric glue here to attach the spine to all sides, and then I just folded it in the centre there, and making sure that all my creases are creased as well. Then I just pulled out some of my 12 by 12 Christmas cardstock. I think I got this from the Works not too long ago. It was only £4, so I couldn't really say no. My plan is to put some ruffles down the side here, so obviously that 12 by 12 is slightly short, but because I've pre-planned the ruffles, that doesn't matter. So I'm just measuring the book and then cutting the width, or the length, sorry, of the book, just short of, I think it was 8.5, so that it just fits on the inside of that book perfectly with a little edge. And I did also ink along the top and the bottom of this piece, just purely because the sides are going to be covered by ruffles, so they won't be seen. So I thought, I've already wasted half of my time inking the cover piece, so I won't waste time in inking the side pieces on this one. And that pattern there, I keep looking at it when I'm doing this voiceover, and it actually looks like a robin, but it's not. It's actually holly. I was going to go with a robin, but where it's a bunny journal, I didn't want there to be too many animals floating around in my journal, so I just went with a plain traditional Christmas paper. And obviously in here I also made sure that my spine was completely glued down, so I did put some extra glue onto my spine because I didn't want it bulging when it's folded, and that worked out perfectly fine. And now it is time for my master plan. I wanted to use elastic binding in this journal because I would like to be able to take my signatures in and out when I use them, or when I'm doing my prompts. I just find it's an easier way for me to work. So, but I'm not keen on seeing the elastic on the outside cover. Obviously I could have covered it with that green fabric if I'd thought of it before, but I didn't. So lesson learned, try and plan as much as possible. But in the end I just decided that I'd get out my bow maker and make a ton of bows just to go over the elastic, to hide it basically. And I've got a mixture of thin and thick ribbon, and I've also got, as you can see, patterned and just plain silk ribbon. So I just grabbed my bow maker to help me make the bows because I'm terrible at doing them freehand. So I started with the larger pieces, using the third prong out from the centre because this ribbon was that bit thicker, and they had the design on them, whether it was the check that you can see here, or I think there was like a Christmas patterned one. Just because they're that bit thicker, I wanted them to be a bit bigger and more bold on the spine. I wanted like a variety of different sized ribbons and different sized bows also. And now, again, it just looks like I'm flicking through and showing you the download, but what I was actually doing was separating the ephemera into piles of what can be cut on my trimmer and what needs to be hand cut, because we all know I don't have a very good attention span when it comes to things like this. So I just try and cut as much as I can on my trimmer to save some time and ensure that I don't get too bored when cutting by hand. It's a lot easier to just trim corners and cut corners than it is to cut the whole tag out. I also find I can't cut in a straight line, so the trimmer does that perfectly well for me. So I'm just going through and cutting all of my straight lines, and then going through and removing all of the white from the ephemera. I did pull out my corner rounder for this pack. I don't know why, I just felt like some of the corners would look better rounded. I also made these 2 fabric ruffles from the same fabric that I've used for my cover, and I'm just going to use my hot glue gun to glue them into place, and that will hide obviously where that 12 by 12 sheet wasn't quite big enough to fit the length of the book. Whilst my glue gun is heating up, I am just getting my elastic ready and cutting it to size. I think I'm only going to have, yes I did, I only went for 2 signatures in this journal. I'm hoping that it will bulk out as I use it, so when you see a top view of the journal, finished journal, it does look very, very roomy, but that was the idea. I wanted it to have lots of room for me to add lots of pieces of ephemera and card and photos. So yeah, just bear that in mind when you see how roomy it is when those are put in. So I just went through and glued these 2 to the side. I was going to use a contrasting fabric, but I don't know, I just felt like there'd be too much going on the cover, so I just kept to the red, and also where there's red in that paper as well, it just I think it goes quite well. I was thinking of putting a pocket either on both the front and the back, or maybe just the front cover, just for me to put all of that ephemera that I just sat and cut, just somewhere for me to put some of the little bits, but I'll probably do that towards the end. Did have to just trim off a little bit of my ruffle there. I didn't want it overhanging the journal cover too much. So that was the finished inside cover, and I'm now just going to tie my elastic, making sure it's nice and tight, because the amount of times I've done it and it's been so loose that I've had to redo it. And if I do what I'm going to do next, which is to hide the elastic with hot glue, it becomes quite tricky to try and tighten it. So I did make sure that they were very, very tight. There wasn't a lot of room for it to stretch too much, so my signatures shouldn't, hopefully, sag or bend the ribbon at all. Can be quite fiddly getting knots into elastic when it just wants to bounce back into its original shape. So I did cut the pieces of elastic quite short by the knot, because I'm going to use hot glue around that area, so I know that they don't need to be necessarily long, because they're just going to be glued down and stuck into place that way. So this is one of my wonderful signatures that you didn't get to see me make, but I think we all know how to make quick and easy signatures. So as you can see there is quite a lot of room. I did play about with the positioning of the elastic just to make sure that they were central and completely even, but I am hoping to fill this journal out with a lot of ephemera and a lot of photos, and possibly even some mixed media work. So I'm hoping with all that at the end of December it will bulk it out, and when you have that top view it won't look so sparse and so bare. So I think the video might cut out in a minute, but I am just going through and gluing down the ribbon on the back of the spine. Where the larger bows are, I did use that as the opportunity to glue the elastic, and I just used the tails of the ribbon or the tails of the bow to adhere that to the cover, just so that there was an extra bit of stability, they didn't move unnecessarily. And I'm just placing these quite random, there's no rhyme or reason to it. I think I managed to film the majority of this spine being made, but it does cut out pretty soon, and after the other video cut out I was so annoyed that I just called it a day, put everything away, had some dinner, had a nice cup of tea, put my pyjamas on, and then I came back to it. I also, when I was doing this bow spine, I really wasn't liking it. I really did not like the way that it turned out. But then when I come back after having that break, I actually quite like it. And the more I look at it, the more I like it. So I'm quite pleased I'd done that, and I'm quite pleased I took a break, because if I hadn't, I probably would have ripped it all off and tried to come up with another solution. In the process, probably ruining the spine and then the whole book. So yeah, I'm glad I took a break and took a step back. So this is where I change plans for the colour of this journal. Like I said, I was just going to use it square, but it took up the majority of the page and, the cover, and whilst I wasn't really bothered by that, I just felt like I needed something else on the cover, and it just looked too planned and it looked too strategic. So I thought, well, nothing screams random than ripped paper. So I ripped up the bunny image just around the outsides of the image, then got some coffee dyed paper and also some book page, and I just ripped that also and had that coming out from behind in random places. It looks like a lot of thought went into it, but honestly I was just going with the flow. There really wasn't that much thought process behind it. I do usually make all of my covers like this. I'll just piece it together and kind of look at it from above and decide whether or not it does actually look any good and whether I should proceed or if I should scrap it and start again. So I just dabbed on small pieces of glue here just to keep the bunny exactly where I wanted it, whilst I was about to ink, because I find if I take the images away and ink them all separately, when I go to put it back into its original place, it's never in the same place and I never end up liking the second version of it. So just stuck some glue down so that it wouldn't move, and I've got my position exactly where I like it. And it obviously allows me to go through and ink every single edge all at once. Don't have to sit and do 3 individual bits and pieces. I think at this point as well I did have to turn the room light on because it was starting to get a bit dark. It wasn't that late, I think it was about 5:30, but obviously it is October, so the cold nights are starting to creep in, and I just switched on the room light, which there may be a bit of shadow in. I did try to keep my big head out of the way, but you do get a bit carried away and sometimes your head just creeps forward every now and again, but hopefully it doesn't cause too much of an issue. I did go slightly out of shot here, which I apologise for, but I think you can get the gist of what I'm doing here. I was literally just gluing all of the pieces down. I did find a little wooden MDF charm that just reads Merry Christmas, and I wanted to put that in either the top or the bottom corner. I couldn't remember where I originally put it, but it did end up in the bottom corner. So I'm just using my fabric glue here again, because the majority of that that's being glued onto is obviously fabric, so I wanted to make sure that that's not going to go anywhere when I'm using the journal. I did scrunch up some of that coffee paper there just to give it a bit of a dimension, just a bit of a different look, so it wasn't just completely flat and boring. And then I had some spare ribbon from the bow making, so I decided to put that on the back of the Merry Christmas charm that I have there, and just stuck that at the bottom. I'm really happy with how it turns out, actually. Like I said, I didn't like my spine to begin with, but now I'm kind of loving it. I did end up using one of the pockets that I cut out from the ephemera to put onto the inside front cover. I just gave it a quick trim and ink around the edges, attached it to the front inside cover and placed some of my ephemera in there, I came across this cute little bunny and I thought he has to go in there, so he's just popping up to say hello. The rest of the ephemera I've just stuck into a clear bag for now. These things are my best friend, they just go everywhere with me. They hold so much of my ephemera when I'm working on a project. So I just stuck it all in there. And that is my journal done and dusted. I'm really happy with how it turned out, and I think I was just flipping through and I decided that I think I am going to use these cards, and I'm going to place them in the corner maybe, or maybe even make a little pocket and then journal around them, depending on what the prompt is for that given day. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to doing this series with you. I hope you can all tag along and do it with me. And I'll speak to you very soon. Bye.